Hello, Downtown Stage. My name is Anthony Breznican. I'm a writer for Entertainment Weekly and a young adult author myself. I'm so pleased to be here at BookCon. You know, they've had a book expo for the booksellers and the librarians and teachers, but this is a gathering for the fans. So thank you for coming out and joining our storytelling panel today. I'm gonna try to go quickly through our introductions. Our panelists are already out here, and I think if I read all of their credentials, we'd take up the whole hour. But I'm gonna start with Sherman Alexie. He is the author of 25 books, including The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven, Reservation Blues, and The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. That won the National Book Award. Well done, Sherman. He's also a filmmaker. He wrote and directed 2002's The Business of Fancy Dancing and the 1998 indie film Smoke Signals, which is based in part on The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven. I just like saying the title of that book. It's one of my favorite titles. He lives in Seattle, and he grew up on the Spokane Indian Reservation. His latest is a storybook with the illustrator Juji Morales called Thunderboy Jr. So, Sherman Alexie. We're also joined by Meg Cabot. She's a writer and illustrator. Of course, author of the Princess Diaries series, and which is now up to 15 books, right, at least? Yeah, and of course, those were made into the hit Anne Hathaway films, and she's published 80 books total, including the Mediator series, and the latest of that, Remembrance, just came out in February. She's also written the 1-800 Where Are You series. Her Avalon High books also inspired a Disney Channel movie. And her new series is From the Notebooks of a Middle School Princess, kind of a spin-off of the Princess Diaries about Olivia Grace, who is similarly plucked from regular life into the royal realm of Genovia. She is the half-sister of Princess Mia. And the second book, The Royal Wedding Disaster, just came out recently. So, Meg Cabot, everyone. It's hard for me to tell, too. Can you hear me okay where you are? Okay, good. That's been a problem here down at the downtown stage. So, Kate DiCamillo. She's one of only a handful of people to win two Newbery medals. The first for The Tale of Despero, which is about a bookish mouse who dreams of becoming a knight and saving a princess, and 2013's Flora and Ulysses, about a girl who feels unloved and a squirrel who becomes a superhero. You've done a lot of good work for Roach.
True story.
Yes. She's also the author of the Mercy Watson chapter books, The Magician's Elephant, as well as The Tiger Rising, and her first novel was 2000's Because of Winn-Dixie. Her newest novel is RAYMIE Nightingale, just came out, so please welcome Kate DiCamillo. So we're gonna open it up later for Q&A from the audience. So if you have some questions you want to ask, keep those in mind. We'll be passing a microphone around. But I want to begin, the title of this panel is The Power of Storytelling, which means we can talk about anything and really go off on any tangent we want. And we'll get to your most recent books, but I wanted to begin with this idea of the power of storytelling. Who was it for each of you? Is there one person in your lives that you knew, not a writer that you read, but somebody you knew who was just a great storyteller, somebody who could hold court and just captivate an audience at a party, a family gathering, or something like that?
You want me to start? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family that my father was Italian and my mother's Irish, and I'm not to make a big generalization, but those are two strong storytelling groups, and we were actually constantly told stories in my family by both my mom and my dad, and really at the dinner table, as soon as we could talk, we were encouraged to tell the story of our day, what happened to us in school, and it had to be entertaining or we were ignored. I grew up in a family of 5, and so the most entertaining person who told the best story got the most attention, and we also had strong senses of humor in my family, so the funniest person, I'm not saying they got the most dessert, which if you like sugar was important, like I do, but that was, and my parents were really funny people, and they told great stories, and they passed that on to us. And I kind of believe that a sense of humor is inherited, because I actually had an adopted brother, and he had a totally different sense of humor than the rest of us. And so he had to strain a little bit harder than my other brother and I to make people laugh, but he was able to do it kind of more visually by wearing funny costumes at dinner. So yeah, that was he liked the velvet
More
pants
prop
and
comedy.
he used props. So we worked it out, but yeah, it was my parents.
It's funny what you say about Italian and Irish was your heritage. Like, not to generalize, but there are different sort of storytelling is important in different ways in different cultures. My people were Slovaks, and if I'd ask my grandma to tell me like a story about her youth or about her father, she'd be like, "Why do you want to know that? Are you writing a book?" Yeah, I actually might. So, Sherman, how about you? Was there somebody in your life that you knew really well who's an inspiring storyteller?
I'll answer your question, but I was so excited to be on a panel with Kate and Meg that at my signing at the booth, I told these two women that I was so excited that I wished I had a bunny tiara. And these amazing women made me... So this is the world's only Meg Cabot, Kate DiCamillo bunny tiara.
It's the Edward Tulane Princess Diaries tiara.
Yes, well, that's their new series they're going to be working on, the Edward Tulane
Thank you
Princess
for the
Diaries.
idea.
Yeah, Edward
Yes,
Tulane
but,
is a princess.
It's a good look too. Just looks
inspired.
good.
Yeah.
So, in terms of storytellers, I grew up with two very distinct strains of storytelling in my family. The Native American ceremonial stories that exist inside our religions, inside of our day-to-day life, mostly told through my grandmother and my mother. And then on the other side was my father's alcoholic lying. And then you blend in the fact that we were all obsessed with movies and books. So really what I became is the world's first indigenous Brady Bunch, sacred, profane storyteller who paid way too much for the very first consumer VCR. So that's my history of storytelling.
Title will never be taken by anyone else.
Yes.
It's yours alone.
Yes.
Kate, how about you?
I grew up in Central Florida, which still counts as the South, and so that is very much a storytelling culture. And I grew up on a dead-end street, and one side was young families, and the other side was three widow ladies, and they all were storytellers, and I would go and listen to them and then tell their story to my mother and change all the facts, which was the first indication of what I was going to become. Somebody who lies for a living, right? Yeah.
You were also a national ambassador for young people's literature a few years back. Like
I was.
That's like being an evangelist for storytelling, isn't it? Like, what did that role entail?
So being national ambassador was something I was actually very intimidated to do because it sounds so professional and because I'm representing the children's book industry, right? Like you too. I was your representative.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Thank
It's
you.
kind of scary.
I don't remember voting.
It's an appointment. Yeah. It was an appointed post. So I was very scared going into it, but then like a quarter of the way through, it's a 2-year term, I thought, well, this has nothing to do with me, and it's just me going out there and talking about what I really believe in, which is that reading together really changes everybody involved. How many teachers are in here? How many of you teachers read out loud to your students every day in the classroom? Can we have a round of applause for those teachers? It matters so much. So that was National Ambassador was thanking those people. So, okay.
I'm glad you did that. I remember my 5th grade teacher after lunch would read to us from the
Yeah.
Weston game.
Right, and I bet
There's
each
little
one of
time.
us, do you
My
have a
fifth
story
grade
like
teacher
that?
did the same
Yeah.
thing.
What did you get read?
A Snowy Day, Ezra Jack Keats's book.
Yeah.
And we didn't have an extensive library on the reservation, so there was the National Geographic Encyclopedia set. So she would read to us, she would pick a letter or a subject like natural disasters or, predator prey, and she would read those to us. So we didn't necessarily have the latest picture, but there was also a lot of histories. So, we were third graders listening to, history books about Theodore Roosevelt, but it was stories. It was still stories.
And there's still somebody reading it to you.
Yeah, and there's a whole generation of Spokane Indians who know a lot about natural disasters.
I was going to say, she was preparing you for the future. You never knew what could happen, so at least you had some knowledge of what to do in that blizzard.
Yeah, and the thought was any book, really. So I grew up genreless, and my dad read mysteries and war novels and, The Punisher and The Executioner, and my mom read any book with an Indian on the cover. So she read all those romance novels, like Savage Love and Apache Heat. And
But I think it's very important, right, that you see your parents reading, and then that lets you know that reading is good. And so I grew up in a house where my parents read a lot, and my father also read those kinds of very hardcore mysteries and spy novels, and sometimes I would go and just to see what they were about. That's how I found out about sex, actually, was always those scenes with the very hot lady that the detective had to interview. She was usually a widow.
Books are a great
was
way.
Lonely.
Books are a great way to pass off that parental conversation to your child.
I think
read
that's why
this
he
book.
left them lying around, so that
It's
you didn't
Savage
have
Love,
to, yeah,
and
Savage
you'll understand.
Love, exactly.
well, it made me think that was going to be my entire life.
It's a good thing your teacher told you about the catastrophes.
That white school teachers would be in love with me.
This conversation has veered off into an area.
Anthony,
I feel responsible. You need to moderate better.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're going to have to talk backstage.
All right, let's get back on course.
So, Sherman, I want to talk about something very personal that just recently happened to you. You underwent brain surgery, and I don't know how many people know that, but you've talked about it publicly a few times. And I was really struck by the first thing that you said to one of your nurses when you came out, which was...
I had surgery in December to remove a benign tumor that had grown from pea-sized 12 years ago to golf ball-sized by December. And I was scared of dying, of course, but I was more scared of losing words, and that was a possibility. So I woke up many times, and the first time I woke up from surgery, I asked my nurse, who was a fan, by the way, which was really weird to have a Foley catheter put in by your fan. So, oh, wow. So what do you think about my poetry?
Better than having somebody who doesn't like your poetry do that.
Yeah, but we had become friends in the pre-operating days, and I woke up and I looked at her and she looked at me and I said, "Can I still tell stories?" And it's still recent. And she said, "Yes." Later, I came out again and I didn't remember that. And I was wondering if I could tell stories, and my doctor, who was East Indian, Dr. Shaker, came up, he was there, and the whole team and my wife, and I'd been saving this joke to tell after I survived, and he came up and I said, "Dr. Shaker, I bet this is the first time an Indian scalped an Indian." And there was no reaction. I mean, no groans or laughter or any of that. And I thought, oh my God, my brain is disconnected. I thought I had that thing where you think it, but you're not saying it. And I was terrified, and I just started crying. And I looked at my wife, and I grabbed her hand because I thought, oh my God, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. And my wife leaned over and said, "Sherman, you've told that joke 11 times.
It wasn't really your brain, it was the anesthesia.
No, it's that everybody needs an editor.
Yes. In the operating room.
But that goes to show the power of storytelling. It can be very healing. It's something to aspire to. Have there been times in your own lives, Meg and Kate, where your ability to tell stories is something that pulled you through a difficult time?
Why am I starting? Everybody turns over. I feel like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like it saves me every day. And every book that I write changes me, and every book that I write opens me up more as a human being. So, yeah, it's a daily kind of thing. And I teared up when you said to the nurse, can I still tell? It makes me cry. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal that story, and I'm going to use it somehow.
I think there's a lot of
I'm just
witnesses.
telling you I was deeply moved before I steal it. Okay, yeah.
I've been doing that my whole career.
Yeah, I think that like Sherman, I grew up in a home with an alcoholic parent, and so when you're a child growing up in that environment, you have to do something to protect yourself. And I think a lot of the reasons that people don't believe kids who grew up in that kind of home is because they do develop a sense of humor about it, because you have to in order to survive. And one of the other things that they often do is make up stories, or what we also call lying, because you don't want people to find out. It's so embarrassing, it's so horrible. The one thing that you don't want is for anyone to know that that's happening. So you become very adept at lying and very adept at laughing it off. But the one thing that I did that I felt that really saved me, besides go to Al-Anon, was write. And I wrote in my diary. My grandmother gave me a diary when I was maybe in the 3rd grade, and I wrote everything that was really happening, so that there was one place where the truth was coming out. And I continued to keep a diary, and eventually that turned into a book called The Princess Diaries, where, my father by that time had passed away, which unfortunately was a huge, I hate to say it, but it was a huge relief, because those terrible problems were still affecting me, but not directly. And then my mom, as some of you may know, started dating one of my teachers. And I was like, thanks, Mom. Now I get to see you making out with one of my teachers, but now everything is really great, because that's my biggest problem. So, and I get to come out and talk to all of you lovely people and use you as my therapists. So thanks. But yeah, absolutely, storytelling is healing. And we can also tell those stories and let people who had the problems that we had know that you're not alone. And I constantly hear from so many readers thanking me, saying, I thought I was the only one that this was happening to, because it is such an isolating thing when you're a kid that has those kinds of things going on.
Tell me about the letters or interactions with readers and fans at events like these. You must have people come up to you, each of you, and tell you different stories of their own experience, hardship in real life, and stories have helped them through. What have been some of the more memorable experiences like that you've had? And if you don't want to start, we could start with Meg.
Well, I can't do it with, I did a signing last night, and I don't know if it's because I'm older or more open from writing all the time, but those stories that people tell you about how the book changed them or changed what's going on in their classroom. Somebody had to bring me a box of tissues out there signing. Yeah, it's just like, it's deeply, deeply moving, and it makes me know that it's like you said, it heals, but it also, it can change a life and save a life. Sherman, do you want to?
I read Thunderboy Jr. yesterday morning at a school here in Chicago, and it was a school with about 90% brown kids. And we had a great time. I read it, and then we did a Q&A, and this young biracial kid raised his hand, and I said yes. And there's a part in the book where the character says, "Come here, can I tell you a secret?" And the kid said, "Can I come up there and tell you a secret?" And I said, "Yeah." So he walked up to me, and he put his arm next to mine, and he said, "We're the same color." And my whole childhood I spent looking for somebody who looked like me anywhere in mass media. And for that moment to happen, it was really huge. And then afterward, he hugged me, and that got contagious. So I had like 100 kids hug me in a row, and I started crying, because it was so amazing. And the little girl was so concerned, held my hand and said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "I've never been hugged this many times in a row." And in my head I thought, I'm not going to write anything but picture books forever and ever and ever. So, because there's a big difference. If like 100 adults hugged me in a row, that would be creepy. Yeah. So, and it's happened. So, but the power. We became writers because we were readers. And because we were the most intense, crazy readers around, and you're all out there too. And to think that I can write something that has the same effect as other books had on me, to continue that tradition, is astonishing.
Meg, how about you? Have you been hugged by many children?
I just went to Brazil on book tour, and there in Brazil, it's rude if you don't hug and kiss someone when you've just met, and so I had a signing with 1,000 girls, so you have to hug and kiss on meeting and on leaving, so every book that I signed, I got hugged and kissed by those girls, so I beat you, so sorry. And some of them were adults, but they're adorable, so I had a great time, and a lot of them were crying. And I think that was just the moment. This was a very exciting experience for me. But I think that, I hear a lot from people who have found something personal in the books that they've connected to. But I hear a lot from reluctant readers, who, for whatever reason, hadn't found a book that they could connect to that made them love reading. And so what I hear a lot from is people who say, I never read a book before until I read yours, and thank you for making me enjoy reading. But I think with my new book, the new series that's about Princess Mia's little newly discovered sister who's biracial, what kind of led me to write that book is because I do have a biracial brother who grew up in a white family and kind of in a white town, and he kind of felt like an outsider for a long time, and I think that was obviously because of his skin color, but I think so many of us feel like outsiders, not just because of the way we look, but kind of because we do love books, and there aren't so many of us out there. Obviously in this room there is. So my books are always about somebody who kind of feels like an outsider for whatever reason, whether it's their skin color or because they have trouble finding that book or that person or that job or whatever the thing that they're out there that they know is something that is going to help them to connect to the world. And I think that that's something that we've all been able to find because we found our thing that we love to do. But I really think that's why we've all been put on this earth, is to find that thing that we love. And I'm just going to tell you that I do like to read that column by the genius Marilyn Vosavant. Have any of you read that column in Parade magazine that comes on Sundays? Don't look at me like that. Somebody wrote to her and they asked her, what's the meaning of life, okay? And I thought, oh my God, no way is Marilyn going to be able to answer this question because no one knows what the meaning of life is. And Marilyn answered it, and she said, the meaning of life is to do what you love to do as much as you can, the thing that makes time pass so quickly you don't even notice. And I was like, oh my God, that is right. And it can be whatever, if it's gardening or reading, and for me, it's writing. And I so love the fact that I am able to do that and get paid for it, although I would do it for free, and I think that's how we all feel. So I hope that happens for all of you, and I love that I have so many readers that come up and tell me that through my books they've been able to find that thing.
Have you ever had an unexpected reaction from someone? I'll give you an example. I was working for USA Today a few years ago, and I did the first look story on when the Tale of Despero was being made into an animated film. We put the images out, and this photo editor, this older man, kind of cynical and not the kind of guy I would have expected to be into this story, like who never really called to ask about anything, was like, hey, how does this movie look? Like, this book is really important to me. And it was because he had read it to somebody he loved when they were dying from cancer. And the themes of fighting against the impossible, but also accepting what's not going to happen or not likely, really resonated with him. And again, I would not have expected him to be a guy who was moved by this story of a mouse who wants to be a knight.
You're making me cry. So that's, yeah.
Have you had anything like that in your own experience where you're like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that person to be so into a particular story?
Yes, I mean, that's been my whole experience across the board, is just like, I can't believe that anybody reads anything that I write. You know, there's still a part of me that's just like hoping that I can get because of when Dixie published, you know? So, I mean, it's a constant surprise because it goes to what Meg said about finding what you're supposed to do in the world, getting to do it, getting the chance to do the work. That's the thing but then to have people connect with the work is
crazy, yeah.
It's a constant surprise. I mean, don't you feel that way? Didn't you feel that way backstage when I said I loved those poems? Yeah,
right. I'd written a bunch of poems about my mother's death, and they appeared in a magazine, Hanging Loose, and we have mutual friends, and Kate backstage told me she loved my poems, and my initial reaction in my head was, they're shit. And that's always
They're divine. They're divine. They're wonderful.
No, I mean...
And they help me make sense out of my grief and my relationship with my mother. So then that goes back to the, you know... So.
I mean, my mom and I had an incredibly complicated relationship. She was a loud, opinionated, arrogant person who sucked up all the energy in every room she went into. I can't figure out why we didn't get along. So, and I've gotten more letters from a group of poems in Hanging Loose than I've gotten for any poems before. So, and I sent my poems out to my rough, gruff man basketball friends, and they sent me back these amazing letters about their relationships with their mothers, especially like the right-wing dude in our group, who cries once in a while and they turn into daggers and dig into all the soft parts of the world and destroy it. This is this guy. And after reading the poems, he sent me this beautiful letter about his difficulties with his mom. And so maybe that's the most unexpected thing. I've known this guy forever and I love him. But he revealed this whole side to me after 15 years I'd never noticed before.
Meg, did you ever have anybody who you would not have expected to be like into a princess?
Okay,
So I think it'd be Sherman here with the...
This is one of the weirder ones, but I actually had one that was about the movie, not the book, and I had literally nothing to do with the movie, but I do have to share this, and I hope you don't mind. I got a letter after the Princess Diaries movie came out, and it was from a prison warden. And he said he wanted me to know that he loved the Princess Diaries movie so much, and he found it so moving and spiritually fulfilling, that he was now going to be showing it to all the incoming prisoners at his jail.
That wins, yeah.
Because he really felt like it had so much spirituality and just, you know, good. It taught about good manners, and he wanted them all to see it as part of their intake. And I was like, I don't know about this. It's got schoolgirls, and I don't know. And so I did not write back. I just decided to let him have it. But that was not. I did not expect that Princess Diaries rated G Disney movie with Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews would now be shown to prisoners.
Really big on death row.
Yeah, I'm sure those prisoners are loving it and super connecting.
Like the cat.
After they've been put in prison for whatever crime.
Yeah, the negative reactions are the weirdness.
We're gonna go negative now? We can talk a lot about the negative
banned
ones.
books of the last 10 years. I never thought that would happen.
I
never thought. I mean, because it's tame, and it gets banned because he mentions masturbation.
I know.
And it gets banned when
You
there's
think it'd be educational.
and it gets banned because there's in an era. I can't believe any book gets banned in the era of the internet.
I know, right?
Is there a kind of honor to being banned though? Like you've pushed the buttons of the right people?
You would think
There's
that.
big royalty checks.
That's the thing.
I highly encourage getting banned. But the thing you know isn't that the kids who need to read that book,
That's
the
the
kids that
problem.
need
Yeah.
your book,
Yeah.
have a harder time getting it,
Right.
but it also guarantees that they're going to want to read it.
Yeah, but how do they get it? And I think worse than banning is that a lot of books, they just get put in the trash by the people who, like, a lot of schools will just quietly make it unavailable, and it's not even that it gets officially banned.
Yeah.
I have had reports from very awesome librarians who are like, just to let you know, or parents or whatever, we found your books in the trash by a teacher or whatever. Not any of the ones here, obviously.
Wait for the school board to ban
Yeah,
it.
they just
do it
so
themselves.
I don't know what that's called, trashing, I guess, I don't know.
I
so
do
it's
it.
not an official banning.
Chris Crutcher, who's an amazing writer for young adults, what he does when his books get banned, he sends a box of books to the nearest public library.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
So, so I don't do that as often as he does, but I've done that before. So I think his strategy is the best.
So we're going to open it up for questions in just a moment, but I wanted to first talk about your most recent books and opening up your storytelling to a new generation. You've all been at it for a while, and I presume you have multi-generational fans now. Like Sherman, my wife, when I was just dating her, she sent me the Lone Ranger and Tonto fist fight in heaven. I married that girl. That was a really good sign. And the children we have now, on Tuesday, our copy of Thunderboy Jr. arrived, the pre-order I had. I was so excited because it just popped up in the mail. And I got to read one of your books to the kids that came from this relationship that was forged from like one of your first short story collection. So they also really loved the fart joke.
I love that too.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But tell me about the inspiration for Thunderboy. You are Sherman Alexie Jr. Thunderboy Jr. sort of comes from your own experience.
I am Sherman Alexie Jr. My father died in 2003, and at his funeral I happened to be standing at the foot of the grave as the coffin lowered and revealed the gravestone with my name on it. And I'd always struggled with being named after my father. In retrospect, you know, that whole colonial patriarchal ownership of your independent human being pissed me off. I didn't have the vocabulary for it, but the magic and loss of it. And then to think, I mean, there's a tombstone with my name on it a half a mile away from my childhood home. And I knew I'd have to write about it. I didn't know in which way I would write about it. And let me tell you, picture books are the hardest possible thing to write. I mean, I did 20 or 30 different ideas. I did 70 drafts of this. I mean, there's a line in there that says, "My dad is awesome." I had 190 different adjectives there trying to figure out which one it was that would be there. And I didn't, and then I went all these ideas and nothing worked. And then I thought, man, what could be the best idea for a kid's book, picture book? And then it popped into my head. And the name popped into my head because you kids will be jealous, and because I tell bedtime stories to my sons. Sometimes I read them books, but we also had long-lasting stories I was making up and improving on the fly. And one of them was about two Native American superhero boys named Thunder and Lightning. So my book is also filled with secret messages of love to my wife and family members and my sons. So it's called, the word popped into my head was Thunderboy Jr. And then I knew, and then it took 70 more drafts. There's nothing harder to write than a picture book. Nothing harder to write than a picture book. Oh, so whatever genre I'm working in, I'm just going to remember this is easier than writing a picture book.
Kate, RAYMIE Nightingale is the story of a girl, actually three girls in a beauty contest in Florida, and the title character thinks she can reunite her family who are estranged from each other. And I wondered if you could talk about the elements of your own life that inspired that story.
So RAYMIE Nightingale takes place in Central Florida in the mid-'70s, and I grew up in Central Florida in the mid-'70s, and I was doing those interviews before the book came out, and somebody said, so this is historical fiction. And I'm like, well, I guess so. I mean, like, what a shock. I mean, but it's like, it's so, and it's not an autobiography at all, but it has autobiographical elements. It is the most, when I was national ambassador, I went around and did a lot of school visits, and I had a PowerPoint, because you have to have a PowerPoint, right? Who knew? So I have a PowerPoint, and I talk about how I became a writer, and I talk about myself necessarily as a child, because that's part of how I became a writer. And I stood up in front of so many kids and showed a picture of me and my mother and my brother and said, who's missing in this photograph? And they would say, your father. And I just stood up there and told the truth so much that I then told the truth in the book. It's just like, this is what it felt like. And because my father left when I was 6, Raymie's father left when she's 10, so.
And Meg, so from the notebooks of A Middle School Princess and Royal Wedding Disaster, you have this new character, Olivia Grace. You mentioned she's the biracial half-sister of Princess Mia. You already mentioned your brother was the inspiration for this.
Yeah.
So were there any other elements of your life that you ended up incorporating in her story?
Well, I always wanted a sister. No offense to my 2 brothers, but I was like, what would that be like? So that's one of the fun things about writing, is that you also get to explore things that you wish had happened. Obviously, I wish I was a princess. My mother says that basically whenever I would be asked to do chores, I would give her a look like, when's my real mom going to show up? So all of that's been incorporated into the Princess Diaries series about a girl who does find out that she really is a princess and gets to go. Well, of course, she's the one character that turns out not to want to be a princess, which is obviously makes it more interesting, because I think there's a lot of people who would ultimately want to rule a country. So this is kind of a younger character, so that it's something, because I don't have kids myself, but a lot of my friends do, and actually a lot of the readers of the original series now have grown up to be teachers or librarians or have kids themselves, so this is a way to introduce the series to them. For their younger companions or kids or students. The original series was not rated G like the movie. I got a lot of mail from people who went out and bought the book after they saw the movie and got their 6-year-old a copy of The Princess Diaries, and on the very first page there's a reference to French kissing. So I got a lot of mail from parents who were upset they had to explain French kissing to their kids. I don't know why. They're going to find out someday anyway.
Oh, you ruined all those kids.
My mom explained it to me. I got Judy Blume's Forever in the 4th grade, and look what happened to me. Is it so bad? That's what I want to know. But anyway, this is a kinder, little gentler series where there's literally no French kissing mentioned, because she's 12. She may start thinking about it soon. But in Royal Wedding Disaster, she's actually being a junior bridesmaid in her sister's royal wedding, which is something I desperately wanted to be in. I didn't even have a wedding myself because my husband and I eloped, so we wouldn't have to have any of our family be at our wedding. I can't believe I publicly stated that. My in-laws live right over in Munster, Indiana, so please don't mention that I said this. But I also got to illustrate the book because I was an art major at Indiana University, and I never have used that degree until now, and I'm very excited that my publisher let me do that. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
So we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience here. So if you've got a really good one, we're going to pass this mic around.
Yeah, no bad questions.
No bad questions. And
Hi, I'm nervous, so I'm sorry about that. But I know probably everybody in this room has had their heart broken at some point in time in their life. I've had it happen once with a person. Oh, I have to put it, okay. But countless other times with books. So I was just wondering, Sherman, but everybody up on the stage, if you have had your heart broken by a book, what book was
That's
it?
a good question.
Or
Very good.
What book has broken your heart most recently?
I've never been asked that.
No, me
That's a
either.
really good question. Good.
Wow.
That's fabulous.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, the first time I openly wept, like tears from your toes up through your bowels, out your lungs and eyes, like, you know, where you're crying mucus from the 19th century, was the end of Grapes of Wrath. When Rose of Sharon breastfeeds
my God.
the starving man.
Now you just spoiled it for everyone.
Yeah. Oh,
That's okay.
yeah. Spoiler alert. You know, breastfeeding hashtag Grapes of Wrath, and
That hasn't been around for very long.
so and I read that and I hadn't. You know, I grew up in a way where emotions were punished. So in public, being male and emotional was, as for many of our cultures, was dangerous and got you bullied. So I'd never really, so it felt like I wasn't just crying for the characters, I was crying for the 7 or 8 years that I'd been alive. I don't read The Grapes of Wrath anymore. So I'm afraid of it. I have post-traumatic John Steinbeck syndrome.
Oh, me? For me, I had a similar experience with The Mill on the Floss. Has anybody here read Don't read it. I was like 13, and I don't know if any of you remember a show called Once Upon a Classic. It used to be on PBS. Very long time ago, and I was watching it, and it was so good. They were doing it in installments. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. It's about this girl, and she has these 2 love interests, and she's super spunky. I'm gonna go get the book, and I'm gonna read ahead of the show, and then I'll know everything that's gonna happen. And I got the book, and my mom was an English major, and she's like, are you sure you wanna read that? And I was like, why not? It's so great. This girl, she's amazing. She lives on this river called the Floss, and she's super feminist, and it's the 1800s. What could go wrong? Oh my God. I got to the end. It's not even the end. It's like 3/4 through, and I'm not gonna tell you what happens, but it is like terrible. Like this whole Divergent thing that everybody was so upset about is basically like that. And I cried for like 3 days, and I wanted to write a letter to that damn author, but she was dead, so I couldn't. And I couldn't even watch the rest of the show. And so now, I hate to say it, I do read the end of every book before I start it. I just need to make sure the person's still alive. Unless it's a mystery, because I don't want to know who did it. Because I felt betrayed. I was so betrayed by that damn author. Okay. Authors are horrible people.
I don't know if I want to step into all that anger. The first time, Black Beauty, which I still haven't recovered from, and changed my whole reading path, because after that I wouldn't check out a book with an animal on the cover. It's like, I'm not reading the end, I'm not reading the book, I'm not touching the book, you know? And the last thing that made me cry was All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Taves. Anybody know that book?
That was
yeah.
what she was asking.
Did you cry?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you laugh, and you know, it's funny because I was traveling and with somebody, and I was reading that book next to her on the plane, and I was laughing, and then I gave it to her to read, and she sent me an email that said, all your jolly laughter on the plane did not in any way prepare me for reading this book, so, but it's brilliant, so, okay.
Very good question,
Good
though.
question.
We do need those stories to, like Kafka said, chop up the sea ice in our lives. Let's take another one.
Got it over there.
Who's got the mic? Right over there.
This question is from Meg.
Hold the mic up a little bit. We can't quite hear.
Hi, this question is from Meg, and I'm really nervous because I read The Princess Diaries at a very young age, and I'm 21 years old, a recent college graduate. And your books were really important for a little black girl in the South. And so I have one question. I remember the anime references in Princess Diaries. Did you ever watch anime or any of the...
I can't hear you. Can you speak up a little?
She asked if you've ever watched anime, that there are anime references in some of your books.
Oh, anime. Okay, you want to know if I've watched them?
Yes.
Of course. Yeah, I do. I have, and I do. When I have time. I don't have as much time because it's so many reality shows now that I have to keep up with. But yeah, definitely. Was that the end of your question, or you have more?
No, that was it.
That was it? Yeah, Sailor Moon forever, obviously.
We'll take a couple more. How about right there?
This question is also for Meg. I am a writer myself, and so when I write, I always have this picture of a character, whether it be a celebrity or an actual person in my life that I know. And I am just wondering, I'm a huge Mediator fan. I am wondering, and I have always wondered this, who do you see when you write Jessie?
Oh my goodness. So this is a character from a book series that I write called The Mediator, that is about a girl who can see and speak to ghosts. I just want to point out that I invented this series before The Ghost Whisperer and before Sixth Sense and that Long Island Medium and all that kind of stuff. And the most recent book that just came out is called Remembrance, and the character is now in her 20s, and she has a boyfriend named Jesse who used to be a ghost, and I'm not going to get into why that is now he's not. I do not actually picture an individual, an actual person, or a celebrity. I just kind of have an amorphous picture in my head, but I do sometimes go online to look at what you guys pick out. And I looked for Jessie. That book was very actually close to being optioned recently. Disney optioned it to make it into a TV series, and I took away the option because they wanted to make it for 6-year-olds, and it's for older people, obviously like us who like hot guys. And so, but I saw that somebody had put Mario Lopez from Access Hollywood, and I was like, no, that's what? And now I'm never going to look again to see. So I don't do that. I don't have anyone specific. So, but thanks for that question.
How about Kate and Sherman? Do you ever picture an actor or somebody?
Do you guys picture like actors or people that you know?
No, but I can see who I'm writing about. Can you see? But I don't.
That's not a specific person, right?
But I've never looked for a picture or imagined.
And when they cast the movie, were you freaked out by the people that? You can't say that publicly, can you? We'll find out back in the green room.
No, I mean Cicely Tyson for Miss Franny Block. Yeah, that was a dream come true.
Pleased,
yeah.
You know, I write about Native Americans, so I have a reverse thing. That I think, what non-Native American with a tan are they going to try to cast? Yeah, exactly. You know, how exactly are they going to try to whitewash my characters?
Right.
Which is why I haven't sold the movie option in 19 years, because I'm not interested. And the thing is, their version of diversity now is that they'd have somebody brown play the Native Americans. So, you know, I'd get John Cho would be playing, you know, Thomas Bilsdefire now. I love John Cho. Or they would age down Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yeah.
There's
so many ways they could ruin it.
And nothing against these amazing actors. I love Lou Diamond Phillips. Lou Diamond Phillips is something, but he's not Native American.
Yeah.
And so I picture the real people whose lives I'm stealing.
Yeah, I think, and this is not to say anything bad about the films that have been done, because I always love everything that has been made of my books, but I don't actually picture people while I'm writing it. Or I don't think any of us would. Just to make that clear.
Well, I want to thank you guys.